Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a policy that seems pretty straightforward on the surface, but has this massive global ripple effect. We're talking about the EU's corn import levy. Now, it was designed to create a sense of calm for European farmers, but as you're about to see, that calm comes at a cost, and someone else is footing the bill. Let's get into it. So just imagine for a second a policy with one simple, noble goal. Create stability, right? Build a shield for your local farmers to protect them from the wild swings of the global market. But what happens if that shield does a little more than just protect? What if, instead of absorbing the shock, it just deflects it, pushing all that chaos and uncertainty onto someone else? Well, that's the big question we're tackling today, and the EU's corn policy is the perfect case study. Okay, so why do these kinds of policies even exist in the first place? Well, it all boils down to a problem as old as farming itself. Agricultural markets are, just notoriously volatile, and that gives policymakers some serious headaches. I mean, just think about what farmers are up against. You've got totally unpredictable weather, pests and diseases that can pop up out of nowhere, and constantly shifting demand from all over the world. The result? You get these extreme price swings that make it nearly impossible to plan for the future. So you can see why creating a stable price environment becomes priority number one for governments. And that brings us to Europe's solution, a really specific and honestly a pretty clever tool they came up with. It's their protective shield, and it's called the variable import levy. Think of it as this special kind of tariff designed to do one thing and one thing only: keep their domestic prices nice and steady, no matter how low world prices might fall. Now, this isn't your normal, everyday tariff that's just a fixed percentage. Oh, no. This one is dynamic. It's a variable levy for a reason. Its entire job is to constantly adjust itself, basically acting like a self-leveling floor that fills whatever gap opens up between the low world price and a higher guaranteed price that the EU has set. So here's a simple look at how it works. The EU decides on a minimum price for imported corn. Let's just say it's 150 euros a ton. Now, if the world price plus shipping costs drops to, say, 130 euros, then bam, an automatic 20 euro levy kicks in. It makes up the difference, bringing the total cost right back to 150. The result for an EU farmer is that the market price they see stays stable, insulating them from those dips in the global market. So you might be wondering, wait a minute, in a world with the World Trade Organization, which is all about promoting freer trade, how on earth does a policy like this, which clearly distorts the market, even exist? Well, the answer lies in a really crucial historical side deal. See, under the big WTO agreement on agriculture, the URAA, these variable levies were supposed to be a thing of the past. The whole goal was to get rid of these complicated protective measures and turn them into simple, predictable tariffs so that trade could be more open. But there was a very important exception. And this is where that exception was born. Back in 1992, to keep global trade talks from falling apart, the EU and the US made a deal called the Blair House Agreement. That special accord got folded into the final WTO package, and it basically gave the EU a hall pass to keep its variable levy system for grains. It was a political compromise that has had economic consequences for decades. So the EU gets the price stability it wanted. Fantastic for them. But what's the hidden cost? Now we get to the core finding of the research, and we see how this solution for one problem just creates a new one by shifting the burden somewhere else. This quote from economist W. Martin just hits the nail on the head. Policies that insulate prices, like the EU's levy, they don't make volatility magically disappear. They can't. All they do is move it around. They redistribute the risk from one country to another. It's a textbook beggar thy neighbor policy. And look, this is a huge deal because the EU isn't just some small player in the market. It's the world's largest corn importer. So when a player of that size puts up a massive shield, the shockwaves are felt everywhere. By refusing to absorb low prices, the EU basically forces the rest of the world market to deal with an even bigger, more dramatic price swing. And right here, on this slide, this is the crucial evidence. Just look at these numbers. When the levy is active, daily price volatility inside the EU drops by 0.73%. Okay, that's the stability they wanted. But at the exact same time, for a major exporter like Argentina, volatility jumps by 0.71%. It is a nearly perfect one-for-one transfer of instability. The best way to think about it is like a seesaw. The EU pushes its side up to get that nice, stable feeling. But in doing that, it forces the other side, the rest of the world, down into way more volatility. The price shield isn't a sponge that absorbs risk, it's a mirror that just deflects it onto somebody else. So this obviously leads to a pretty big question. If this policy is just exporting chaos, are there better ways to actually help farmers? And the answer is a resounding yes. It involves a big shift from supporting prices to supporting people. Let's just quickly compare the variable levy to a simple fixed tariff. The levy acts like a solid wall. It completely blocks low price signals from getting through from the world market. A fixed tariff, on the other hand, it transmits those signals. If the world price drops 10%, the domestic price also drops 10%. That lets producers and consumers react to what's really happening with global supply and demand, and that always leads to a more efficient market. And this brings us to what many argue is the best alternative, what's called non-distortive income support. So instead of messing with market prices, this approach just gives direct payments to farmers. And crucially, these payments are decoupled from production, which just means they get the support whether they grow a little corn or a lot of corn. This helps their bottom line without wrecking global trade, making it a far better policy for the rest of the world. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's a pretty powerful lesson about cause and effect in our deeply, deeply interconnected global economy. Here's the bottom line. The EU's levy is a perfect example of how what starts as a domestic policy, a local solution for a local problem, can ripple outwards and become a huge problem for other countries. The stability that one nation enjoys is being paid for directly by the instability that another one has to endure. And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. The EU's corn levy shows us that stability in one corner of the world can literally create chaos in another. So in a world as connected as ours, can any major economic policy really truly stay local? Or does every single action we take inevitably have a global reaction? Thanks for watching.